Hi folks, I'm Matt and welcome to My Expanded Universe, a show where I go through the entire EU in chronological order as best I know how. Folks, we're going to tackle two Star Wars Adventure Journal short stories here. It's Star Wars Adventure Journal number 10. It's written by Aaron Endem and it's called Do No Harm. Now in this story, it focuses on Auryn Leith, who is a rebel agent. He's also a doctor and he's coming across a moral crisis. Should he kill this Imperial? Now that goes against his ethical code, his medical code, I guess, that he can't do harm to another person. But if this Imperial gets away, it's going to do a lot of harm to the rebellion. So what is he to do? Now, one of the things that I really liked about West End Games was their perspective on the war. It didn't always have to be rebel agent versus stormtrooper. You could have different people of different, different positions. Like this guy's a doctor, which is very interesting because I don't think at this point we had heard it from a doctor's perspective. Sure, chronologically wise, you had MedStar from the Clone Wars that focused on doctors, which I thought was unique. And in other stories, you saw the doctor, but they were basically a side character, where the doctor's the main character, and they have a crisis like this, that goes against the medical code, the doctor's oath. They call it something else in the Star Wars universe, but it's an interesting dilemma and something that's interesting to read. Is the story all in all that great? No, it's a fine story. It's not a super great story, but it's an interesting perspective that West End Games offered. The next one is in Star Wars Adventure Journal number 9. This is called Combat Moon, and it was written by John Whitman. That's right, the man who wrote Galaxy of Fear series. And looking at this publication-wise, I think this is his first Star Wars story within the expanded universe, because this was written before the Galaxy of Fear series. Anyway, Combat Moon is a story about two aliens, the Rabbanites and the Skur, and they have some animosity and kind of like this internal war between the two of them, but then they soon realize that basically it's the Imperials who are they're manipulating both races, and so they turn on the Imperials and they go and join the rebellion because of this skullduggery by the Empire. Now, I didn't realize that John Whitman had started off, once again, here's another author who started off with West End Games. I didn't realize he'd written this story. I didn't remember much of the story, to be honest with you. I had to go back and look it back over again. But I was shocked to find out it was John Whitman, because I know him and love. I've already talked about his Galaxy of Fear series, which I think is fantastic because it connects to a ton of things in the expanded universe. Well, in this one, looking back over it, it's not his best. Galaxy of Fear was his best, but it's still good because, and here's the theme of this episode, perspective. West End Games, the thing that they got right, one of the many things they got right, was looking at the war from different perspectives. Here's these two alien races. This has nothing to do with rebels right now. They're just having a battle between each other. They hate each other. But when they find out that the Empire is the root of that, then it gets them both outraged and they just go and flip and join the rebellion. It backfires. Whatever game the Imperials are playing backfires. I love that. It's a different story. Is it a great story? No. Is it something different? Something we hadn't seen before? Yes. And in an era, like in the mid-90s when this stuff came out, where you could have generic rebel versus stormtrooper and everyone would be happy with it. No. These authors wanted to show different perspectives inside the battle during the rebellion era, and I have to applaud them for that. I think it was genius for what these people did. Fantasy Flight did this a lot in their stories. One of them in particular I remember is they were talking about settlers on a new planet, where it describes the rocket ship shooting off into space and the people going, I wonder what the world's going to be like by the time that thing comes back with more supplies. Can we build a civilization? And I like that about Fantasy Flight. But the only thing where they fell short and where West End Games exceeded was West End Games would also share short blurbs, like little one-page stories to kind of give your imagination, give your creativity a boost. Put a little story behind it so you can see the theme, where where to go to. And then, of course, like the Adventure Journal, every time they wrote an Adventure Journal, at the end, they always had the dossier of how you could play these characters, you know, what their stats were. And then also, here's some adventure ideas that you can have. So here's the story, here's the primer, we primed the pump for you. Now, here's some stories you can tell. Here's some role-playing adventures you can have. And I know this, I should stay focused on these Star Wars Adventure Journal stories, but I'm just saying in general, this is one of the great things about West End Games from back in the day, because not only were they very creative, but folks, they basically said, here's the introductory story, here's the pace, here's the feeling, and it basically just pulls you into these characters and into their world, into their situation, to where now, boy, after reading this, I've got a billion ideas. It forced you to be creative. No wonder, like I mentioned in the last episode, Rich Hanley was inspired to write them and say, I have an idea, because good stories from different perspectives get our creative juices flowing, and we think, wow, I got a great idea where we can do more stuff with this. Man, I've talked about the Star Wars Adventure Journals a million times on this channel, but once again, this is another great aspect of why those West End Games stories were so perfect, even though they weren't the best or memorable ones in the EU. All right, folks, that is all the time I have for now. See you next time with another video.